Okay, so let's dive into a really fascinating story. Imagine for a second you've built this massive empire, an entire kingdom on perfect order and predictability. And then, almost overnight, the world changes. The very thing your empire is built on, data, suddenly becomes chaotic, messy, and totally unpredictable. This is the story of Oracle, a true giant in the database world, and how it faced this exact challenge, a high-stakes game of adapt or become a relic of the past.
So this really gets to the core of what we're talking about today. It's a huge question, right? How does a titan of industry, a company that was literally built on rigid structure, survive a complete revolution? We're going to break down how Oracle navigated this fundamental shift in the very nature of information itself. All right, let's set the scene. The year is, say, 2001. The dot-com boom is roaring, and the internet is just churning out a tidal wave of new data. But here's the thing. This data was, well, it was wild. It was untamed. It didn't fit into the neat, clean, orderly boxes that companies like Oracle had spent decades perfecting. And this wasn't just some small technical headache. For them, it was a genuine existential threat.
And here's the absolute best way to understand the difference. Think about Oracle's traditional world. It was like a perfect spreadsheet. You know, every single piece of data has its designated cell, its neat little row and column. But the new data from the web, that was like someone dumping a giant, chaotic stack of business cards on your desk. The information you need is all there, name, company, phone number, but it's all over the place in totally different formats. Oracle's entire universe was built for that perfect spreadsheet, but the world was suddenly speaking the language of messy business cards.
So what was their move? Well, they didn't just sit there. In 2001, with a release called Oracle 9i, they went on the offensive. And their first target? The king of this new, messy data at the time, XML. They basically decided, okay, if we can't force this data into our old boxes, fine, we'll build a brand new kind of box just for it.
And they called this new box XML DB. Now, instead of trying to slice and dice those business cards to cram them into spreadsheet cells, they built a special, dedicated home for them right inside the database itself. And this was a huge deal because for the first time, this messy XML data was being treated as a first-class citizen with the same importance as all their traditional structured data.
And listen, this was way more than just a storage closet. It was a full-on, high-tech workshop. It had what's called schema-aware storage, which is a fancy way of saying it could actually understand the structure of the XML documents. It came with powerful tools like XPath and XQuery. Think of them as super smart search engines just for XML. And crucially, it had its own specialized indexing system to make those searches incredibly fast. They didn't just support XML, they built a complete, professional-grade solution for it.
But of course, here comes the twist. Just as Oracle had seemingly tamed the XML beast, the internet did what the internet does best. It changed the game again. A new, much more lightweight format called JSON started taking over, really driven by the explosion of web APIs for mobile apps and services. The ground was shifting under their feet, and Oracle had to prove it could pivot all over again. And boy, did they pivot. In 2014, with Oracle 12c, they went all in on JSON. And this wasn't some half-hearted effort. We're talking a native JSON data type, powerful new functions that let you query it with the SQL language everyone already knew, and, of course, dedicated indexing for speed. This was a total game changer. What they did was build a bridge between the old world of structured data and the new, flexible world of NoSQL, all inside one single database.
So when you kind of step back and look at this whole journey, you see something pretty remarkable. This wasn't just about adding a few cool new features here and there. No, this was a fundamental transformation of the product. Oracle was evolving from being a specialist in one thing into a modern hybrid powerhouse that could handle it all.
This timeline really tells the whole story, doesn't it? You can literally see how each major update was a direct response to what was happening on the web. 2001, it was all about handling big enterprise documents with XML. Then, in the mid-2000s, it was about making that faster. Then, bam! The huge pivot to JSON in 2014 for the new API economy. And now, more recently, it's all about deep integration with the cloud. It's like watching a company dance in perfect step with the evolution of the internet itself.
So, what was the payoff for all this work? Well, it was massive. First, and most importantly, it ensured they wouldn't become a dinosaur. They stayed essential in the new age of the web. Second, they gave their customers an incredible new power, the ability to have their old and new data live together seamlessly. And third, they completely redefined their own product, turning it into this do-it-all hybrid database that could handle pretty much any kind of data you could throw at it.
And this quote just nails it. By embracing semi-structured data, Oracle proved it could evolve with the web. This whole journey is such a powerful lesson, and it applies to any company in any industry. In a world that is always changing, the ability to adapt isn't just a nice-to-have skill. It's the only thing that separates the leaders from the fossils.